think we can all agree that you see not only how that's going to help you guys achieve your goals over the next 12 months, but it's going to help you identify and hit them over the next 24 to 36 months. Let's put this evaluation to good use and get this set in so it becomes part of your workflow for the next 3 years.
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Chevy, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to B2B Deal Breakdown Podcast, where we give you the play-by-play and some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Chevy, and I'm excited to be meeting with Tom Boccard. He's a senior vice president in the SaaS industry. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, how's it going, Derek? Thanks for having me here today.
I'm really excited for you to share your wealth of experience and what you do every single day. It's going to be a real treat for all the B2B listeners. So can you tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in B2B sales now for, it's north of 15 years. So it's probably about 17, 18 years. I started as an individual contributor. This was back just a little bit before, the Great Recession, I guess, right? In the mid 2000s, selling conference delegate passes. So entry level role, selling $1,000 to $2,000 tickets, rose the ranks there. Kind of went then to doing sponsorship sales, which was, average values probably about 20, 30K in that ballpark. And then eventually got into management. And that's what I've been doing for the last 12, 13 years now is leading sales teams in the B2B space. Been at Global Data for the last 8 years, where I joined them as a director of sales, helping really establish their New York sales team. Inside sales teams is kind of where I've started making my bread and butter, expertise in really developing teams, starting new divisions, taking over existing teams, kind of fixing some areas and or getting things out of their way so they can really realize their, maximum potential. Global Data brought me in to help build out their oil and gas, their pharma sales teams in New York. We grew that up. That was 8 years ago. So I kind of rose the ranks there, director of sales, VP of sales, now SVP of sales in the healthcare group.
Awesome.
So it's been a wide range from individual contributor managing, everybody from SDRs to your senior, BD execs to having VPs and managers underneath me. So kind of a mixed bag across the way.
Well, you've had so much experience. It's like you need to keep developing people under you. So can you tell us a little bit about this company you're with? Like, what does your company actually sell? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So Global Data, it's a market intelligence, company. So essentially our mission is really to help our clients decode the future, so that they can be more successful and innovative from that side. So what we do is we create trusted intelligence for them. It's really, our CEO likens it to like a Bloomberg of the vertical markets. So, everyone that's in the financial sector has a Bloomberg terminal on their desk. We see that, we cover right now, it's about 18 verticals. So we have an individual platform for each of these. So everyone that works in oil and gas, we want them to have access to Global Data. Everyone that's, working in the pharmaceutical space, which is the team that I oversee, we want everyone at the drug developers and the people that sell into them to have access to Global Data. And essentially what it does is it'll give them, it helps them make better decisions faster. It really gives them all the knowledge, whether it's identifying people they should be selling to and giving them the sales story and when they should go in there, or if they're looking to expand into new markets, or, what's the regulatory like in different geographies, or what's the potential market size for them, from a customer standpoint. So it really gives them that hands-on 360-degree view of their particular industry so they can operate faster, mitigate risk, and hopefully exploit opportunities.
Yeah. It sounds incredibly valuable because, nowadays, you don't want to make any bad decision if you're an organization in the climate that we're in. And the first thing you do before making any decisions is you research data and you try to see what the right thing is to do. And if you guys compile all that and it's relevant and it's fresh, sounds like could be pretty impactful.
Yeah. That's one of the key selling points. People, they look at it as it's, if they're making major acquisitions in their sector, they're going to utilize us for a part of their due diligence. They're not going to rely on us entirely, but it's a reliable source. We're unbiased. For us, we don't care who you buy, what you buy. We just care that you're using the right information to make these decisions. So it's proven successful. It's proven resilient, I think, is a big thing, especially during these last 6 months or so. Once COVID came into place, people started moving remote. Our businesses, we've maintained and actually have been growing during this time, particularly in the pharmaceutical space. But it's, it proves that in questionable times, it's even more imperative. So, I think that's something that can translate, across any sales sector, though. It goes back to that, how are we selling? And these times where people are tighter, it is more challenging. It's like 2008, 2009, when the whole dynamic of decision-making changed. It went from one person to committees, and now the committees got more in depth. If you're seen as a valued resource in the sector, so not even, I'm not talking solutions here, I'm talking individuals.
Right.
You're seen as a thought leader, you're seen as a resource for them. They're going to trust you. They're going to come to you. They'll be more open, and you might have more steps in your sales process, but I think you're seeing those are the people that are still successful. They're still overachieving versus quota, because they've really become those subject matter experts that their prospects rely on. And it's not just seen as, well, hey, I'm going to go to, Tom to get my market intelligence. I'm going to go to Tom to learn, see what his thoughts are, where the industry's heading in light of,
right.
People are now all working from home as opposed to being out in the field, whatever it might be. Right.
Yeah. It seems incredibly valuable because, especially in the world that we're in, where there's so much information that's put out there that's just garbage, or some person that's uneducated, or they just have an opinion about something, or they saw something on the Kardashians and they think that it's real, and they create a blog about it, and then someone sees that blog and they think that that's news or that's real, and then that becomes information. It's like, how do you source through all this data? Even Wikipedia is a public site. And so it sounds like the challenges that you guys solve is there's no bias, and it's just data, the data that you need to make good decisions. Sounds great. So what this particular deal you're sharing with us today, in your career it sounds like we have about the same amount of years in background. Mine was 2003 is when I started, but in that amount of time for you, you've seen so many deals. Why did you choose this particular deal to share today?
Yeah, I mean, this deal, if you just look at it from a revenue perspective, it basically it allowed this rep. We work in a month-to-month, quota scenario, but the size of the deal was equivalent to a half a year's worth of target.
Oh, huge.
So it was also a multi-year deal. So it's good to see that. So it, obviously transcended kind of our average order values by probably 5 or 6x.
Yeah.
And we got them locked into a few years on an initial buy-in. So that was, really telling of the value that was delivered through the process. But also the process itself was not your standard, like, demo set, did a demo, did another 2 or 3 validation demos.
Yeah.
Went back and forth on the proposal, little negotiation. There was, multiple demos. It was, they flew us out to meet with them and actually participate in their sales kickoff meeting that they had.
Oh, sounds good. Don't give it all away.
Won't give it all away, but it was definitely a unique situation, and there was a lot of learning points from it. It was, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it, though, and it's so like obvious in some aspects, but it's just like, don't be assumptive.
Right.
And we'll dive into some points of that, but it was like, I went in, I had this plan. I know this is what they want. I know this is the use case. It's been confirmed by the users, the influencers, the champions have all told me this. And I was way off sometimes. So definitely, it was a lot to learn, and the sales cycle, it was something that was longer than our average. Our average sales cycle could be in the 6, maybe 8 week time frame, and this one probably took us a few months. We were out of budget, as far as timing wise with them, but we were able to still make it happen. So I just think there's just a lot of little different things that hopefully can help people, no matter if they're SDRs, SMB, mid market, or enterprise. I think there should be a little something for everyone in it. And I think, what did I tell you? I said it's high drama, high action, no romance or something. I feel like I had a good line to you. I don't know what I was thinking about when I told you that, but
romance would be a nice fit to put in there too. Make it extra. Yeah. There's so many intriguing things just about this deal that you're mentioning here that let's get into it. I mean, how did this deal, whether it was you or someone on your team, how did this company first come about? How did they find this company just to start?
Yeah, so this was actually before we were doing. So now we're fully on like ABM, right? It's account-based or account-based sales. We all have our territories that we focus on. This was prior to that. So one of the initiatives that I constantly look at is, where are our past subscribers? Where are our past clients? That's someone that we should be going back into. We invest consistently in our products, whether it's internally through developing and enhancing and growing them, or through acquisitions. So like it's just constantly improved. So if they were a client of us even 6 months ago, it's going to be totally different. So like we need to stay in front of these guys. So this particular company was found from there, but it was a past client of ours. And that company they're still operating, but they had been acquired since they were clients of ours. So this was to the parent company, who kind of floated in and out of pipelines or target spreadsheets or in Salesforce for people to go after. Yeah. But we were like, okay, let's really look at this. So this company we're targeting, they acquired someone that used to use us. Who else have they acquired over the years? We saw that, wow, they have actually over the last 2-3 years acquired about 7 or 8 other companies. But they hadn't acquired anyone in the last 6 to 12 months. So it's like, okay, they might be at a point where they kind of acquired all the pieces of the puzzle now. Because you started looking at the way these companies they acquired, you're like, okay, it makes sense. That helps them do this more. That helps them tap into this audience. That helps them sell into the existing clients with this service. It just, it was obviously a well-executed plan. Yeah. But we were going after the parent. We're like, let's go to the top. Let's work. I'm a big proponent of walking downstairs instead of up. So whether it's you're calling into, the parent company, but also the individuals. So like start at the top. I'll start at C-suite, SVP, managing directors, what have you. Let them pass me down rather than trying to work up from the users or, champions, influencers, what have you.
That makes a lot of sense before you continue, because what your product in general is solving the challenges of, looking out and vision and decision-making in general. It makes a lot of sense for you to start at the top of the people that are having those thoughts and trying to come up with a good, proof case of why they should go those directions with their company. So it makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing too. It's like, we look at it from a sales perspective, and a lot of people just look, human nature is take the path of least resistance, right? Like we're going to go down that path. It's going to be easiest. Like, that's why a lot of people will start at like the end user range when they're calling into companies, because those are the people that will pick up and talk to you. Like it's not hard to sell someone a product that they're not spending their money. It's not their budget. They're like, yeah, it sounds great. That'll help me do my job better. I have zero influence on it, but so like, it's more challenging to speak to those senior level people straight off the bat. So people start down and they'll spin their wheels a lot. I think the same comes to the value that you're selling. It's like, it's easy for us to sell also just like on the, hey, we're going to help you find more deals today, but that's not going to get us deals at we're not going to close at efficient rate if we're just selling on like the immediate part.
Right.
I like selling into the strategic. It's like, we're going to help you develop your 3 to 5 year strategy. It has the tools so your teams can actually execute that strategy in the day to day. And so you're kind of selling from both angles.
Right.
So that's getting you in stickier points. And it's creating larger deal sizes.
And I think just to elaborate a little bit more on that, I think whatever you sell, so any of the B2B salespeople listening in, there's ways where you can think about how it what you're offering, how it can help the end user and because there's a way that it will help them, but there's also a way that you can think about the underlying challenges and how it relates back to the people in the C-suite, like you're mentioning. And for you, the way that you delivered or talked about the challenges in the beginning of this, you're talking about the challenges that the people at the top are having. So it's really easy for you to get in the mindset of those are the people I want to talk to because those are the ones that are having those challenges. But if it was just like we help people make good decisions every single day on things that are immediate, then maybe you do need, that would put you in the conversation with those people making those decisions every single day, as opposed to the strategic vision, like you just mentioned too.
Yeah. And that's, so that was part of the plan then when we saw it. So that, it wasn't massive plan going into this, a lot of this happened, I should say, actually after the demo was booked. Right. So it was like, this was an AE that booked this demo. So it wasn't an SDR, it was full cycle AE. He went in, he booked the demo with their CMO, I think, or SVP of marketing. But it was a role that oversaw all the different subsidiaries from there. So it was good. And marketing is a good angle. I mean, you talk about strategy and it's market sizing, market entry, a lot of areas that we can help and support. Someone I like it as a better starting point than sales, because sales will sometimes just be like, well, what are the contact info? What are the leads details? And it's like, right. Okay, here's a phone number. Now, what are you going to say to them? Right. When are you going to call them? Why? It's like, so, I was getting into marketing well, but once we saw the demo was booked, that's when we sat down and, he was a new rep. And the manager at the time that was overseeing him was new to management. So she was just in the seat for a couple months. So I was heavily involved in this kind of strategy from the beginning, where it was like, okay, you're going to get on this call, but let's look at the company. Let's see where it is. And that's where we identified, hey, they had made these multiple acquisitions over the time frame. We saw how the pieces fit in, and we're like, well, let's go in there and see what's happening, because they bought this company that used to subscribe to us. One thing, find out who are the competitors that are in place. What are the use cases? What is the company's initiatives now? What are their main objectives now that they are all these one companies operating under one umbrella?
Right.
So it was kind of setting up our discovery call, at least in a conference room, brainstorming around that bit. Because I think you need to not just say like, well, what does the company do? What is that? It's like, what are we going to talk around? What are the strategies we're going to try to impact? How are we going to help them? What are the pain points or the initiatives that they're focusing on right now that we're really going to support and that we're going to lean into to build the value of the deal and the opportunity?
Yeah. Let's pause right there. So your account executives, so your frontline people that are setting appointments, they're cold calling and setting a demo.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first touch. And then you guys got to come out and you're using probably your own tool, your own product to do more market research about the company. And then think about how you're going to tailor this demo, which they're coming to, which a lot of times we would have some sort of discovery meeting with the client first before we get to the demo. But you guys don't have the discovery meeting with the client. You guys are just doing it yourselves, thinking, I wasn't on the call. How are we going to make this demo shine?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, what we encourage is, in those opening calls, or if you book a demo over an email, it's, to have a discovery conversation. Right. Would rather that discovery happen on the first bit, or at least elements of it. Because I mean, and I think that's one element too that I should point out, Derek. Like for me, discovery calls, it's not a part of the sales cycle. Because you're never done discovering. Like it shouldn't be like people, like no one should look at that and say like, okay, I've done my discovery. That's off the list. Time to move on. It's like, and don't get me wrong. You get your opening. You need to do a discovery. There has to be a point of that so you can actually do a proper, it's your needs analysis. So when you start introducing the product and doing whatever it is, your services, you're linking it to what their needs are, exactly. Right? But you should continuing to be doing that discovery throughout those calls too. When you're matching the product to the solution, even when you get into the negotiation, you're still uncovering different aspects. So I think for me, it's just looking at, I'm going to find all this stuff out throughout the process. But yeah, this was something we didn't know these details. So we started really diving into it. and that manager, they hopped on with the rep. They did the demo together. Demo went well, right? We uncovered they had 37 other potential vendors internally that they had subscriptions to, which we could actually support. What 35 of them do. So it was like, okay, that's a good thing. We found out as a company, they're now, moving into, operating as one company as opposed to all these separate entities. Another good thing. It was a very, very effective call. And when they introduced the product on the call and it went very well. So he then, the CMO or whoever, he wanted to bring in, so we started saying, well, who else needs to be involved in this? What's going to happen? This is, going to support multiple divisions, multiple people, et cetera. Where is it? So we found out, it's going to be a global initiative. Majority is run out of North America, US and Canada, right? So that helped us where we're focusing from there, but understanding that they're going to be looking around the world at all this. But B, it's, okay, this is marketing, but we need to bring in sales, right? So we got to have the sales team involved. So let's set up another demo with sales now. And key elements that they really did well here is they started asking our right now they're friendlies to us. These guys we're all on the same team. We all agree there's value, which I think is a key point that people should look at too, because it will go from you're on opposite sides of the table, the confrontation, to now you're working as a team, kind of going together. And at that point, you really need to get they're a champion at this point for you. Wherever they might be in the totem pole, they can provide you with intel so you can be more effective on your next call. So you got to milk that out.
Yeah. Can we pause?
We really started fighting. Yeah, go ahead.
Pause there. So you said, so you basically, there was a moment when you knew that you went from marketing to saying we need sales. And I know it might make sense for, the senior people out there, the senior B2B salespeople, but for everyone else, they might be like, I'm running with marketing. It's going great. Let me just take that all the way. So how did you know that you needed to bring in get other sponsors inside of this deal?
So for us, it started dialing into what the actual use case was going to be.
Yeah.
That was a key for us that really kind of signaled like, we're going to need buy-in from other people, because it was going to end up being either they tried to sell it to these guys internally,
right?
Which you never want anyone selling on your behalf, whether it's external or I personally think internally as well. Like, yeah, you want to bring managers in, you want to bring people in, but don't bring them in and sit back and pick up your phone,
right?
Watch and learn what they're doing so you can start bringing them in a little more strategically. But anyhow, we saw that, okay, these are the people going to use. So if they sell them internally, it might not work because they're not going to really sell the true value. They're just going to tell them what it is. Or B, we might sell the deal without getting them involved, but it's going to be a short-lived deal because for these people, it's, the change has come about, right? There's, global data is now on board. They're using us, but they're being told to use us. They're being told that they should use this. And like, look, nobody likes change as it comes to, but I mean, this, Derek, the salespeople hate change. When I change people's seats in the office, I got to hear about it for 6 weeks. And it's like, if this is like, and that's a seat in an all, like, come on. So it just, from experience, it was like, okay, the way he's describing the use case, they're going to kind of identify their target, the TAM, they're looking at the total addressable market. Right. They're going to start marketing them based off of our materials. And then they're going to be feeding that to the sales guys to use, whether to leverage existing relationships or do new ones. We want those sales guys to be in on the same page. And, and our internal contact was all on board. It was like, yeah, let's absolutely get them involved. When we've bought things in the past, so that's what we started checking in as well. When you've made these decisions in the past, what went through there? He said, when we've had sales involved, it's been a much smoother process. It goes quicker because we're all on the same page. It's being spread across more people, so upper management's a little more comfortable with the money being spent because ROI should be easier to get. Right. Sales, ROI is pretty straightforward. Did you close more deals or better deals because of this? It's easy. So there's a lot of little things, and then there's some blatant things that the prospect told us. But for me, it's, again, you should understand your ideal customer profiles, right? Like, who you're going after, the personas. who's the buyer, who are the economic buyers, who are the champions, who are the influencers, what do they deal with? But it's also understanding, how do those personas interact with each other within the company? Because no one is making a decision now by themselves. So like, don't keep it siloed. The more you go out, the more support you get. And it might add, in reality, it should actually quicken your deal cycles, which might be contrary to what you'd think by getting more people involved, but it should help with that.
For sure. So was that something that you guys said, hey, we'll reach out to the contact, but we'll reach out to sales? Like you guys took that upon yourself, or did they help connect the dots for you?
This particular one, it was a bit of both. So they were doing referral email, introductory emails to us. We were going out and expanding that net to other people. They were bringing people in. We were like, let's target this date. We'll bring, senior management, then we'll go out further from there.
Right.
So it was a cohesive, approach.
Good. I mean, that's also strategy that people might not realize it, because they think if they're going like, oh, we'll bring another party in it, we'll bring another department in it. They might rely on the customer to do that. But you guys were saying, let's both do it. It's like, that's also pro moves there that I just want to call out.
Yeah, I think, you set that up with the client too. You tell them, listen, typically at this point, we'll bring sales in, or we'll bring in this division. This is who we generally work with. And what I do is like, I'll reach out to them, let them know that we've been speaking. You have enough on your plate. You don't need to be doing my job for you. You kind of take out that sting, because a lot of people will be scared. They don't want to go over someone's head, or they don't want to like go beyond their prospect or this stuff. If you position to them straight up and you kind of diffuse that in the beginning, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, that's great. And I think an easy way to do it is like, hey, Derek, you got enough on your plate. I'm not trying to make you do my job, but generally, we speak to the CFOs, we do this stuff. So I'll reach out to them, or, if you don't mind, I'll send, if you could send them an email introducing me, but you're busy. So I could also send them an email, copy you in on it, so they'll know we're in conversations, yada, yada. You'll get people that'll be like, do not go to them. I'll go.
Right.
It's happening. And then it's like, fine. Then now you need to coach them and train them and role play. Right.
What to say in practice. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you set it up that way, it generally has helped kind of bring those walls down, and they're like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I do have a lot on my plate. I don't need to do your job. Like, go ahead, do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense. I think it's, I think for a lot of just people out there, it's like, how do they bridge that conversation? How they know to connect it? And I think it's a pro move that sometimes we just think is something we do every single day. It's just what you do. But for a lot of people, they would just, a lot of newer B2B salespeople, they might not know that you've got to let the customer know these are some challenges we could run into. And you also know from maybe you just relied on your contact, your own champion, thinking they could take it home with you, take it home for you. And then you end up waiting for months and I haven't been able to get this person to meet. And that's why the whole deal stalled. And you get the battle scars from those sort of things. I never want that to happen again. So let's make sure we do things right. Fantastic. So you got sales involved. You guys are sitting on the same side of the table. And now you guys are starting to do, it's just when you're doing more demos, or are each of these interactions a demo?
It's a combination of demos and strategy kind of meetings of like, okay, so this is, and what we did. So we outlined a clear, I guess mutual action plan is we didn't use that term. I was unaware of it at the time. It was like, we called it an implementation timeline basically, but it was like, look, here's what, you tie their objectives to a date. Right. The compelling event, there wasn't necessarily a compelling event. We were outside of budget cycles at this point. So it wasn't like, hey, you're doing your budget planning. Perfect. Or you have those competitors I mentioned, all those contracts were expiring at all different times of the year. This was in the beginning of the year. So this was like Q1 of last year. Yeah. So it wasn't like, all right, well, we're right outside of Q4, so we could do it. No. And I was not going to sit here and let this wait for 10 months, because then they would have been gone. Someone else would have swooped in, initiatives would have changed, momentum's killed. So we're having meetings talking about, okay, we did this, checking in on homework, going over next step action plans, doing more demos, validation demos, high level demos, getting senior management involved, finding out who they want us to get buy-in from on their teams.
Right.
It's a real moves are turning. We probably did. It was probably only about like 5 or 6 demos. I say only because it might sound like it was a lot more the way I'm describing it, but that's a lot. Usually for us, we need like 2 or 3. So we had double the amount of demos. Proposals are getting refined now. We're seeing, how many users it's really going to be within divisions. We're trying to now get everything in line to get into really the C-suite.
Yeah.
Because that's who needs to sign off on it, right?
Right.
And the person we needed to meet with, I actually wrote his title down so I can remember. It was the SVP of Sales and Strategy.
Got it.
So he was, he oversees the marketing and sales guys. All of that. Some of the other strategy elements was actually bringing in these different companies all under one umbrella as well. So we needed to meet with him. And our main champion, who is, he managed all the other subscriptions that we talked about. So, he's the right person you want to have. But he's like, we got to get in front of, this gentleman. He gives us a thumbs up. That gets us to the CEO for sign off. So I was like, okay. I'm like, when can I meet him? When can we do a demo? What's going on? Like, let's, at this point I'm involved. I've started coming in to help on some demos. We like having, when they're having 15, 20 people in the room, we try to even the odds a little bit with us as well. I don't like being, 1 on 10. That's not a fair fight. Like at least give us 2, 3 in there. We bring analysts involved from our side. So like the people that are, heads of these industries, they know it inside, they speak the same language as other people's internal analysts. So it's all going there. So what it builds up to is they're actually having the first sales kickoff, global sales kickoff. First time they've done it in 3 years. So this is in Houston. I don't think I mentioned this is within the oil and gas sector.
Okay.
That we're dealing with. So this isn't the pharma. This is a different company I was dealing with at the time.
Got it.
So they're like, look, we're bringing in all our sales guys from around the world. So it was like 100 plus, I think, from this end. We're bringing in the heads of the different divisions. So it'll be all the VPs of sales and like it wasn't every single salesperson in the company, but like their top guys from each thing. Bring them all in and you'll be able to meet with the SVP of Sales and Strategy. We'd like you to come in. Why don't you present to the room? And I'm like, this is perfect. Let's go. We'll come in. Why don't we meet? We'll meet with you and the SVP of Sales and Strategy the day before. So we could have a brainstorm session. I'm like, I know exactly what everyone's loved. They've seen about the demo. So we'll just go through a demo in person, and I'll bring one of my, we just hired a new consultant. I'm like, I'm going to bring them down. They'll present on the industry. So it's kind of under the guise of we're going to present to the industry for you guys.
Yeah.
And we'll show you the product that supports it. I was like, this is great. Easy, right?
Everyone's going to be there at once. It's going to be perfect.
It's perfect. So like, I got the slide deck built out. I'm ready. I got all the confirmation, for the hotel where we're doing this all at with them. Conference. We got the internet, so I can go right onto our platform, show them live. It's going to be drive easy, right? Like
this is where the drama comes in, where like your flight was canceled, or you missed your flight for some reason, and you had to like drive across the state and get on a Greyhound just to make it.
So this is first bit is the first time I meet the new consultant. We're down in Houston. He flew in from London, so I fly from New York, and I talked to all my analysts beforehand. They're like, yeah, we're going to send them different points from each of our specific regions that are of interest to them. Built out this beautiful thing. So it was like a knowledge share. I meet the analyst and we start talking through. I'm like, so what? I'm like, what's your background? What have you done? He's a consultant background, has not done any work in the oil and gas sector ever.
Oh,
so I'm like, whoa. I'm like, how are you going to present to this room on the industry? He's like, well, I got the slides. I'm like, oh shit. All right. So first thing, I'm like, great. I didn't even look at the slides that they put together because I'm like, he's got it. He'll nail it. This is when I can sit back. I can drink a coffee, get my thoughts together to get ready to, I'm like, shit. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, we're going to meet. This is the first time we're meeting the SVP of Sales and Strategy. I'm like, just let me do the talking. I'm like, talk up your background consulting wise. Like, you came from Big Four firm and this stuff, right? I'm like, talk to that. I can talk about the industry. I'm just going to get them talking. I'm going to get them asking questions, and I'll do it. So then we go in, and like, I'm sitting there with my champion, and I'm like, hey, I'm telling him beforehand, like, this is the plan. He's like, yeah, this is great. This is the perfect setup for what you're going to do into the analyst. And so I start going into it with the SVP of sales strategy, and he stops me like, it was like maybe a minute in, and I'm like getting going. Like, so I'm standing up from the desk now. I'm walking around the table, and he's like, whoa, Tom. Let's hold on. This is good, but I don't want to go over any of that with my sales guys. I'm like, this is real. It's like product oriented. And like, I should have known, like, what do I, like, going into a room of sales guys and I'm going to talk about product, but he's like, my guys, they've been selling the same way for the past 30 years. We don't want them to sell that way anymore. And I want you to tell them how they can sell differently. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what's wrong with that way? And like, and it's literally though, what he described to me is like what we talk about with all the sales teams that we sell to. Cause it's all in oil and gas. It's an old boys network, smoking cigars, drinking scotch in like these old, that's how business is done down in Houston, right? Like, yeah, it's 2020. It's not how business is done anywhere anymore. And it's not, so we really start like taking it apart though. And I'm like, okay. And like, so I start telling, I'm like, well, this is how I train my guys to sell. And he's like, that's what we need to be doing. It's a lot of it's the Wayne Gretzky, right? Like, you don't skate to where the puck is, it's where it's going to be.
Exactly.
So, and I think I actually used that analogy in the presentation with these
Good
guys.
one.
So it was like, and that's the old, was that the Michael Scott quote, right? From the old, I know that was, you miss 1,000% of 100% of the shots you don't take.
I think that's Jordan, isn't it?
Is it Jordan? But isn't that where in The Office where Steve Carell quoted, like, it was like, it was him quoting a quote or something. I don't know. Anyways.
Forget that one, but yeah.
So the guy, and when I showed him the industry stuff, he's like, yeah, the industry is great. That's great. Like, that's all aces. Like that'll teach these guys to learn. It'll, whatever. That's cool. But like for my train, so like I had another meeting set up that afternoon and I'm like, shit, I need to like rechange this entire presentation. And it was 9 a.m. I didn't know this. They were like, yeah, so you're going to be the first presentation to kick off our sales meeting. I'm like, what do you mean? We're going to kick this off. And they're like, well, we're going to do some introductory words. But like, you're the first speaker because they're like, we want you to, you're going to talk about the state of the industry. So tell them globally and like that. And like, I'm looking at my consultant, like, all right, great. And they're like, and you're going to set the tone for like the mind shift in the way that we approach sales. I'm like, yeah,
piece of cake.
I'm totally game. Like this is like, I mean, this is what I do with my team. So it's not crazy, but I wasn't ready for it, which kind of showed me like, don't assume though, going in there, you should ask questions and think about the audience, right? Like I was preparing it for my champion for what he wanted to do and for the salespeople that we had met with and them, like for how they were going to use it.
Right.
But not for the audience. Like, and that's great how they're going to use it. And I get their buy-in, their support from the people I had met with. But the person that's going to give me, that is really kind of the economic buyer here, that's going to give the thumbs up so the CEO will sign off on it. Totally different mindset from them. So like, it's a lot about setting the agenda. Hey, this is what I had planned to go over. This is what I'm doing. I should have went in with that in this meeting and said, this is why I'm going here. Is that on point? Is there anything else? Because he would have said to me, yeah, that's on point for them. It's not on point for me. Right. And like that scuttled it. So then like, needless to say, we're up to like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. At this point, I'm like, I went from beers to coffee because I'm like, I got to like fix this and settle it.
Oh man.
I'm trying to like coach my consultant like on the sessions and like his things, but I'm still like, I'm recreating slides. We got a room of 100 salespeople and salespeople, you got them in a room and they're like, who's this vendor coming in? I'm not being positioned as like a sales consultant or that. It's like, this is literally the intro was, we are evaluating buying their product. Some of you have seen it for others. And I'm like, oh, sweet. So
it's going to come down to this presentation right here.
Right now. So like, I'm like, shit. So whatever. My part goes off. It goes off pretty well. It goes off well. Then the consultant gets up there, starts going through the industry. They start asking questions. And I'm like, oh God, what am I like? How can I jump in? Yeah. And then I remember I'm still mic'd up. They had a mic on my shirt.
Oh, nice.
So I just start speaking and I'm like, this is great. And like, so, and it's not like he did that bad, but it just was like, I had positioned him like, here is my, he's an industry expert. Right.
Right.
And it was too late to backtrack because he was doing me a favor too. Last minute thrown in, flying in from London. So like,
he's probably incredibly nervous right now.
Oh man. Shit in his pants, right? Yeah. And once I started talking to him, you could see him calm down and relax a little bit. And then that gave him a chance to review the notes he had made while like they're kind of looking at me, played it perfectly off each other. And then it got to the point at the end where I'm like actually answering questions, showing the product, and you get those questions from the audience. And one of them goes, wait a minute, so do we have access to this? And I was like, perfect end. We're great here, right?
You're like, and on that note?
Yeah. I literally pointed to my guy. I go,
it's up to him.
I said, ask him. And they're like, but this is where it gets interesting, Derek, right? So like crazy meeting, different there. And I hung out for the day. So like everyone kept coming up to us, actually participating in some of the like side things they were doing, building some rapport. And I'm like, I grabbed my guy, I grabbed the SVP of sales strategy. I'm like, so guys, like, I'm not as presumptuous. Like I have a contract with me. But I do have a contract with me. If you want to look at the T's and C's, get that process going. Like I did, like it was more for like a joke.
Yeah.
They're not going to sign it in front of me, right? And but I'm like, we got to get T's and C's into legal. Let's get this stuff going. And the SVP of sales strategy was like, well, hold on. And I'm like, good. Like, what do you mean, hold on, right? He's like, I got to talk to the CEO and COO, or the CFO and CEO. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, call me next week. Let's talk on Tuesday. I'll let you know what they say. They want to see it. And I'm like,
that's what you find out on Tuesday?
On Tuesday. So we've gone through all this now. We're about 4 or 5 months into, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, what do they want to see? He's like, well, they just want to see. And I'm like, well, look, I'm not going to go through the demo and show them how your sales guys are going to use it. I'm like, cause like, I'll speak to it. But like, I'm going to show them how they're going to use it. And he's like, well, I'm like, no, but I'm like, this is a tool, to your point earlier, for the highest level of strategic. Like, he's not going to use it every day. Your CFO, she's going to go in there 3 times a year, maybe. But I want them to understand how the value can go from the top to the bottom in the organization and how it can help you all move from there. And so he was, and now, so this is me. Like, so I've taken over the sales process at this point.
At this point, yeah, because you just did a training for his entire salespeople. You flew out to Houston to do that. I mean, you're in a different position where you can, they're going to go with you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but it's like at this point too, I'm like, it's a CEO, and so I tell the sales rep, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, this is a good learning point for you. I'm like, how would you approach this demo with the CEO? So we did like a great kind of training session where it was like, and put together a decent one, and I was like, look, but I'm like, you got to understand with the CEO, and he knows that he's got buy-in from senior level people that he hired to put in positions to make these decisions so they could vet it out properly. And he knows that they're only recommending because it's also being recommended further down the chain, up the chain, what have you, right?
Right.
I was like, so you don't need to go overkill. I was like, let's take these. We know these are the 3 major initiatives for the company to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months. That's what a CEO and CFO cares about. Let's take them and put each initiative into one slide for them. It'll be screenshots. We'll show them a slide deck instead of going through the platform, because hopefully then we won't need to go to a platform. It's high level.
Right.
But I was like, you got to make it really outcome oriented. It's benefit oriented slides. It's not, support it with the features and the advantages, but it's got to be outcomes that are tied to their initiatives. And what we did was a really cool thing. And I got to give the rep like credit for this creativity. It was like, let's make it like it reads like each slide reads like a CNBC headline, like a before they go to the break, like coming up, boom, 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 where you're like, shit, I want to know what's going on in India. I want to know what's happening in North Dakota, right? So it was cool. It read like kind of like news headlines, stories headlines. Cool. And it was a totally different dynamic of them. But of course, to stick with the theme of this, the CEO and CFO, they decided to bring on like a regional salesperson from Canada onto this meeting with them. And I'm like, not paying any attention to like, that guy in the room. Cause like, come on, we got the bosses here. Right. And I literally, it's a joint presentation with my champion to the CEO and CFO. So we're going back and forth from slides. We combined our decks and, this like regional salesperson starts asking questions for like, little mom and pop oil and gas company in like Alberta, Canada. And I'm like, sure. So like, yeah, we could help you with that, but why? And we're like swinging and missing on some of these things. Cause like I'm typing in the names wrong. I'm like, why are you even talking? What's going on? Like,
who are you? You're throwing it.
But again, it's like, it's all learning points through it, but luckily we were able to get them involved and get everyone involved and do that. And they, from this full evaluation, we kind of leveraged the point of like that it went through all these steps. So like, right. Okay, we met with marketing, the head to the bottom, sales, bottom to the top, to your C-suite, to your corporate, development team, to your advisors, everyone in between. We've done hours upon hours of demos and evaluations, and you guys have done that in turn with us. You've invested all this time, all these people, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We're all at it to move forward. I think at this point, because of this time and evaluation, I think we can all agree that you see not only how that's going to help you guys achieve your goals over the next 12 months, but it's going to help you identify and hit them over the next 24 to 36 months. Let's put this evaluation to good use and get this set in so it becomes part of your workflow for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And they went for it. It was good. The negotiation starts in that, but ultimately, we ended up doing that. So, for me, it's like, if we look back on a couple of takeaways from it, I got to give the rep credit from a creativity standpoint. It was identifying. A lot of people look at, this company, I'm just going to go into this company that used to be clients. Not necessarily looking at where are they now? Oh, they're a subsidiary of this company. Maybe we should go to the parent, the parent has bought other companies. Okay. This actually could be a pretty good deal. Yeah. But also the creativity they gave with like throughout the demos and the proposals and getting people involved. Like, so it's being creative outside of the box, with the standard stuff we do. Not being assumptive, as obvious as it may sound. It's always setting an agenda, recapping, the challenges and objectives that you heard and you're going to address on this call and why, giving them the chance to say yes or no. And doing that not just at the start of meetings, but in setups for meetings.
Right.
If I had done that before, and I would have found out for that final meeting with CEO, CFO, they were bringing in a regional salesperson that just they were close with because they worked out of the same office in Canada with them.
Maybe show them how it would work.
Yeah. So it's doing that. It's slowing down to move quickly in the sales process. But then it's also, it's pushing back too. It's not like we were at that point where one person, if they pick on one company that we missed on, it's like, I've gotten at this point, probably 70 yeses and support.
Yeah.
It's having confidence that we don't need to have everything for everyone as long as we can help you guys achieve the initial objectives.
Right. You got to a certain point where you knew that the deal was so stacked in your favor, unless you did something absolutely horrible, there was no chance you're going to lose. But I think that also comes from losing deals when you didn't put in enough value. You didn't add in enough of those things, get enough of those approvals and buy-ins to know that you just got to keep getting more and more and more until you feel like it's overwhelming. Along that line though, did you know if you're up against competition at all?
So we found that when we went through who they had in place.
Yeah.
And like when I say they had 37 subscriptions, they weren't all like competitors, but they were things that like some of it were publications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But from the incumbents, there's two strong competitors that they weren't necessarily vying for like the full business like we were, but they were certainly defending for their contracts. But it wasn't like an open source like RFP. Once they started engaging with us, then they engaged with those two existing vendors,
Right.
To see if they could match kind of what we were doing.
And you knew about this as you're going through it?
Yeah, because it was with the champion that we had.
Yeah.
We had just developed such a strong relationship with him at this point. And he was on board with us. He had committed to us multiple times that if it was entirely up to him, we'd already be on board.
Yeah.
So we just kept it going. I was like, just let me know if competitors are coming in. Like, I'm not going to talk negatively about them, but I'll let you know if they are a genuine competitor, or if they are, where they fit in. And I was like, I'll tell you straight up our strengths and weaknesses against each other. Like, I was like, I know right now, competitors you have in place, they compete with us in slivers of what we do, but not the full thing.
Yeah.
I was like, so if we don't overtake that contract, you're still going to need us. So I was like, I'll be completely transparent with you.
Nice.
And I think you need to do that though with people, where it's like so many people, they jump to talk bad about the competition so quickly. And, if you don't know, like, you don't know if the person you're talking to, if they're the one that championed and signed that contract with that competitor, like now you're just telling them like, hey, you made a terrible decision. That's bad. Right. But it's also like, I love, my favorite thing to say when people bring up competition, they go, oh, it's interesting you bring them up. I mean, we don't really view them as a competitor of ours. But why do you bring, it's like, and it's like, oh yeah, we do have, there are crossovers from that side, but, we help clients with, this is where we come into the picture. So yeah, I see how some of that overlaps with them. Some of this doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
And there, we have a lot of clients that have, dropped them to come to us, and a lot of clients that have them that brought us on as well. So it's,
keep it pretty vanilla.
But I think, you got to be straightforward with that stuff though. And you got to be like, it's not just that I had the deal stacked on my favor that gave me the confidence. It was like, we had been hearing the right stuff from them. We had done we led with value.
Right.
We found that, we understood, and we kept hearing how it would help everyone that we spoke with. So it's like, it's going to help all these people. How are you not going to use this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you've met them, you've been in their rooms, it's important. The breakouts, you spoke to the whole, I mean, come on, there's way so many things in your favor on this. It sounds like you went through things that won the deal for you. You went through things you wish you would have done differently. What about if you were to sum everything up, and for all the B2B salespeople out there that are trying to get not only just to win against competition, but also to get a big deal like this, which was half your budget, what sort of words of wisdom could you help salespeople out there?
Well, I mean, I think A is just, first you got to believe that it's going to happen. You have to if you have that mindset that, all deals are 20K, you can't close anything higher than that. Like you're never going to get that first off. So you just got to believe that, it's the ability is that you have the ability to do it, and the clients have the ability to buy it as well. So it's just from a mindset perspective, focus on that. But I think it's a lot, there is a lot of research that's involved. Not necessarily like pre-call research, but it's persona research.
Right.
You understand your ICPs inside and out. Your ideal customer profiles. You can speak their language. You understand what they do. I talk a lot about commercial empathy is what I call it. It's really just knowing your buyers inside and out and what they do. If you know that, you can have real conversations with them that will lead to the value being pulled out. And the more you do that and have those conversations, the more of a resource you become, and you can demand higher price points. And you're not scared then to go in because you're answering multi-threaded problems, or you're helping them achieve these initiatives that are at hand, and you're right. Quantifying it. So you can really dig that in there. So it's, that's something that should always be ongoing for anyone that's selling out there. Like, you want to know, you become subject matter experts in your buyers.
Right.
What do they do? How do they operate day to day? Look at the job look at job postings for the people that you sell to, for the titles. Understand how they're measured for success, right? The more you can speak to helping them be measured successfully, the more they're going to buy from you, they'll listen to you. So I think it's going in there, and it's not relying that once you get into these people, it's not relying on one person. Cast a wide net in the company, and work each individual through the sales process, sales cycle. And you'll get these deals. They'll be there.
Yeah. I think this deal is extremely interesting. Just like you said, full of drama. It's the first time I've heard of a deal coming in where someone had to speak to the sales team and get them fired up for how they were going to sell, and how they're going to change the way they sell into the future, regardless if they're going to go with you or not. I mean, that's just, there's a lot that is very unique in this deal. And I'm glad you shared this one. If people wanted to reach out to you further, what's the best way?
LinkedIn's the best, I'd say, from that. So it's just Thomas Boccard on LinkedIn. That's easiest way to get a hold of me. But we also, I'm part of a few other things that are going on in LinkedIn outside of global data. So I do the Top 1% show with Paul Salamanca. That's every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern that we do. So you'll see that from Paul or myself. That's posted up there. A lot of fun. Derek, you've commented on our Canva abilities in promoting the show, so it's good there.
It's a legit show. You guys really do talk about great things that can help.
That is a lot of fun. We're really trying to kind of just help people through. I mean, there's just a lot of adversity, I think, out there, and that leans in on mindset a lot. Mindset and skill set really tie the two together. And also, I'm actually a co-founder of a community that's called SDR Defenders. We've just kind of ramped that back up. It's really a content place for people to, whether you're an SDR, or a sales development manager, or even, your full cycle AEs, you need to understand these parts. But it's really, a community. We send out a newsletter. Going to start doing some webcasts like monthly on that end, but we're trying to provide content for people to digest there to help their jobs better. So,
where can they find that?
That is sdrdefenders.com.
Got it. Okay.
So pretty straightforward there. Also on LinkedIn. But we float all around from these things.
Well, I'm glad with your experience, you're finding ways to reach the B2B salespeople out there, because there's a lot of them that, do need the extra help, and they're looking for the mentorship and the sort of value you're providing, just from not only from the story, but I imagine you're providing for your own teams every single day. They can get a little bit of that. It's a win. So I wanted to thank you, Tom, for being on the show today. This is going to be probably the most interesting story, if I had to guess, of a deal that was closed. But right now, you probably hold it. We'll see what happens after that.
All right. Well, I'll hold on to that crown.
Well, hey, that's it for today's session, everybody. Thank you so much, Tom, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. For all of our listeners, if you'd like today's highlights, be sure to check out our summary on modernSalesTraining.com. Have a great sales week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out our free Top Performer Academy course. Inside it, I'll give you 12 sales tips that only the best salespeople do on a daily basis. Tips ranging from cold calling to running effective appointments, handling objections, and creating urgency in your deals. You can get it 100% free at www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's modernSalesTraining.com/free. These 12 tips could be the difference between you having a good month or an incredible one. I hope to see you there.